Hello YouTube, hello. I can hardly believe I'm starting vlog number 2. I had all these amazing plans over the weekend and I was gonna like take the vlog mobile, get out and about, show you the exciting things that I was getting up to. But then you know what happened, don't you? The universe had other ideas, which was basically, you're not gonna feel that great, so you're gonna go to bed. And it was really interesting the way that happened and the way that came about, because I feel like there's so much for us to explore and delve into around this idea, this subject of being able to surrender and accept what is happening to us as life moves forward and life unfolds. So it's not just that, it's just life generally. How easy do you find it in your day-to-day exploration, machination, experience, vicissitudes of life to be present and accepting of A, the unknown, and B, the unfolding? There is such a temptation, a want, a need to have control. I'm holding the keys to the kingdom. I'm holding the power to control. I am the one who is directing what is happening in my life. What a load of nonsense. What an absolute fallacy. What a complete, what's the word I'm looking for? Fabrication or misunderstanding of what's happening. We have no absolute control over our experience. Now, that's not to say that we shouldn't plan. That's not to say that there is no point in being considered about the actions and making decisions about the things that we do and making commitments to do certain things. But ultimately, the way that it unfolds and the way that it expresses itself is beyond our control. So I was thinking about that in terms of the ideas that I've had. So I made all the plans. I thought about what it was loosely, the ideas of what I wanted to do. And that was one example of how that time could have gone. And then the reality was something completely different. And it was not down to me. I could have controlled my way, try to control my way out of it. So I could have pushed back and resisted the way that I was feeling. So I could have been really, I don't know, let me take some drugs, let me mind think my way out of it. And yes, you have so much power in the mind to determine your experience. But by the time things filter down into our bodies, we've passed a certain point. When we are experiencing things in our bodies, that's the point at which we really need to pay attention and heed the warning, because there may have been flashes of our lives trying to grab our attention. There may have been flashes through some of the thoughts that we may have had, through some of the interaction that we may have had with others, through some of the reflection that may have been available for us to say, hey, pay attention to this thing, whatever this thing is. And then by the time we have ignored that beyond a certain point, and it starts to filter down into our physical experience and manifest as colds, tiredness, like the sickness bug, our body physically calling us to slow down, stop, and pay attention. By the time we get into that realm of manifestation, we have to pay attention. Or we could ignore it and force our way through, try and control, this is set to happen at this time and come what may, I'm going to make it happen. And whilst there is a certain amount of admiration to have for that approach to life and that surety and determination to get things done, at whose expense is that ultimately? It will only ever come to be at our own physical and emotional detriment to keep pushing past what is factually already in our experience and what is already manifesting and already happening to us. Because why do you want to fight so hard? Why do you want to push so hard? Why do you want to use so much energy and will and determination in situations that maybe don't necessarily warrant it? So that was my little reflection about saying, okay, so maybe I'm just going to have to take to my bed, slow down, sleep. It's great to sleep when you need the sleep, because like that's the best thing you can do for your body, to allow it to repair, to allow it to reset. And it's simple. It's so simple. Our bodies are so smart, but we think we're smarter. So yeah, that was a nice thing to do. But the challenge then comes as a mum, like, okay, so there's things that need to be prepared for school this week. Washing that needs to get done. Shopping that needs to get done. Is there any other support and homework that needs to happen around that? So that's always an interesting one. How well do you respond to that push and pull of what your body and mind and soul, your emotions are absolutely telling you that you need for yourself to be better, to feel better, to do better, versus the pull of your responsibilities as a mother. I must do this. I can't leave this alone. I can't leave X, Y, and Z, because ultimately if we don't find a nice, sweet spot within that, who's going to suffer? We may tell ourselves that our children and our families are going to suffer if we don't do what we've always done. But that, again, is not really that true, is it? If we have to retreat and pull back for a period of time, things may not get done in the way that we are used to them being done and in the way our families are used to and expect them to be done. But it doesn't mean that they won't get done. Will life come crashing down around our ears? Well, maybe the standards that we're used to may come crashing down around our ears, but guess what? That's okay. And in some ways, it's quite important to allow that to happen. In some ways, it's actually something that we should be supporting happening, because it means that other people, our families, the dynamic around us may, fingers crossed, start to appreciate what happens when we show up regularly enough, because they see the difference when we're not there. But it also means that everybody else gets an opportunity to find their responsibility and gets an opportunity to play with what it looks like to step up, to play with what it looks like to be more participatory in the whole dynamic of the family. And that's something that is actually pretty cool. Our perfectionistic ways, our desire for things to be a certain way, the challenge that we may have in navigating a different dynamic may stand in the way. But also, this is part of the story. This is part of our life story. This is part of understanding the unfolding. It's a part of surrendering to the unfolding. It's a part of understanding that it doesn't matter how hard we push, these things are inevitably going to be there. They are inevitably going to happen. Yeah, so that was that. Saturday we went to the cemetery to see my dad's grave. It's actually looking pretty good. So we planted some magnolias and some chrysanthemums. We're going to put some daffodils in. But we were told that maybe it might have been a bit hasty because you have to let the ground settle. But it's looking good so far. And I have a feeling that it's just going to stay absolutely banging. It's going to look fine. So yeah, we were checking on the progress of that. Came back and just was wiped out. Had to take to my bed. So Monday, new week. This is why we're still here in the house. And do you know what? I don't hate that so much. I haven't got a problem with it. It's fine. Yeah, so that's my question to you, how much do you allow yourself to flow with what life is bringing it versus resisting, pushing back and saying, I want things to be only this way or the way that I think they should be for life to be okay? Because that, my friends, is a hiding to nothing. Way a lot of energy that is not really required. And you know what? When we do that, we also miss something fundamental. The idea that our version of how things should be is the best version of how things could be. And we miss so many possibilities that we will not be able to envisage or envision when we do that. So saying yes to being in the flow, saying yes to the unknown allows us to open out and expand into that. So these are my thoughts on this Monday afternoon. Let's see what the rest of the week brings. Oh my gosh, the week just got accelerated, caught up so quick. So I am recording this on Saturday when I had wanted to have the whole vlog up by Friday. And there's so many things in my mind and I was like, oh, I've got to put this in the vlog, I've got to spend some time vlogging on this, got to take the vlog here, there and everywhere. And as with everything in life, it's turned around in the perfect way, because this bit that I'm adding now is about how the week went. So I've had a really great week. There's been a lot on, had some great sessions with clients, lots of a variety of things going on, breath work, working with young people, Reiki sessions, so a nice smorgasbord of lots of bits and pieces. And yesterday I was 100% doing the final segment, or this bit of it, to add to upload, and what happened? I got caught up, which is basically what the theme of this bit becomes as a result. So I want to ask you a question. In life, do you find yourself pushed along, like caught up in the wave of life, in the way like things, external events contain you in a little cyclone, and before you know it, you've gone from A to E and you've kind of missed the bits in between? And this is what I mean about getting caught up. So yesterday, I had all the best intentions. It was my daughter's last official day of school. So they're going back to school next week, but they've got no lessons, no tests, exams, whatever you want to call them, but they've been having them continuously since really around February time. She's in her GCSE year, so last year of secondary school. And because of COVID, because of the lockdowns, they were umming and ahhing. The government were like, the exams were happening, the exams aren't happening, exams are happening, exams aren't happening. And then it was late in the day in February that it was officially decided that actually no, the exams are not happening. So instead they've had continual assessments right the way up until yesterday, when she had her final three, to create a portfolio of information to be able to decide what's going on with their GCSEs. Anyway, so because of this happening, it was really like a big deal for me to be able to mark this ending of this phase in her life, mark this rite of passage with a bit of an honoured or an honouring ritualistic ceremony. And obviously it's not like something specific, but I've written a blog about the importance of rites of passage and ritual. So I thought, especially because it was fresh in my mind, it was important for me to live according to the things I had reminded myself and rediscovered through that writing that piece and the thoughts that were around it. Anyway, so for me, it was important that for her work was acknowledged, the effort that she had been putting into doing all this additional work, because I've heard a lot of stuff, the teachers have been going on about it, perhaps other people have had the view that because they didn't have formal exams as years had gone by, as previous year 11s had in years gone by, there we go, got the words out eventually, that it was somehow easier, somehow they were getting off lightly, somehow it was a much easier approach to examinations, an easy approach to assessments. And I just want it to be recorded that I strongly disagree with that sentiment, because they have had no break since February. Was it before half term or after half term? I can't remember, but since February basically there have been tests and assessments in every subject every single week. So she hasn't had a single day. No, that's not true. Maybe she's had a couple of days here and there. She hasn't had a single week where there haven't been continual assessments. And you know, that's really fatiguing for the mind, the emotions, because you've constantly got to be switched on. So that's since February until yesterday, May, like mid-May, that the year 11s have been constantly switched on to test exam, revising, test exam, revising, test exam. So that's a lot of emotional strain that these young people have had to endure over this time, on top of all the uncertainty, on top of all the judgments they're making themselves about their performance, and worrying about how it's been going, and worrying if they're doing enough or not enough. Anyway, so this is the thing that prompted me, that it was really important for me to say to Nyla, you've done an amazing job, whatever happens from here on in. And I keep joking with her that I've got an email prepared to protest if I feel that her grades are not reflective of her attainment, her ability, and the effort that she's put in. But that's completely aside. It was really important that this period, the end of this period, the demarcation, be made something that was celebrated, being made something that was acknowledged for her and her efforts, and the shift from this, the ending of this phase in her life, to she's got a bit of time on her hands now. It's time to like relax, rejuvenate, regroup, decide about how she wants to focus in her life going forward. So that was a really important thing. So I made brownies, celebratory brownies, because what else is there to celebrate with? Decorated the house a little bit, got some flowers, got her a little gift, wrote a little card. When she came from school, her nan came, me, her and her sister, the four of us together, had a bit of dinner, and then we ended up playing quiz games and having a sing-song around the old Joanna. So it was a really, really sweet evening that unfolded it in its own way naturally, but I got caught up in it, which was perfect. It was beautiful. So we didn't end up, oh goodness, Steve, you know it is, excuse me, you know, it's like really tickling your nose. So we got caught up in it, and not that we had any hard and fast plans about when it was going to end, but it wasn't until about 10:30 that the evening started winding down, at which point I decided, I made an executive decision, I was not going to then continue finishing the blog, uploading it and so on. And it was perfect, because it was a conscious decision that I made at some point in the evening that it was going to wait until today. But coming back to it, isn't it easy to find ourselves in that kind of situation in day-to-day life, where we forget perhaps what it is that we're working towards. So we may have made some goals earlier on in the week, earlier on in the year at some point, and said, right, this is what I want to focus on. This is how I want to move forward with certain things in my life. This is really important for me to make progress with. And yet somehow we get caught up in the external events, whether that's influence from our families, expectation that we should be mothering a certain way, we should be being a certain type of friend, certain type of partner, wife, colleague, daughter, even to our parents, that we forget, we lose sight of the things that we took time to say, this is important and I want to make progress on these things and I want to move forward in these specific and certain ways for myself. So easy for that to happen. I was talking about it with a couple of clients this week actually, a coaching client earlier on in the week, where it's, as a mother, there are so many expectations on us that we absorb because society expects it from us. We put a lot of internal pressure on ourselves to be the perfect mother, to be the mother that our mothers perhaps weren't to us, to be the type of mother that is good and praiseworthy and enviable almost by how well we do the motherhood and mothering, that we lose sight of and we lose track of the things that we held important for ourselves, or we may not even get as far as differentiating that we need to have certain things that keep us motivated and focused as a person, because we get caught up in, we get absorbed by all the expectations of the other roles that we have going on around us and what it means to meet those needs of others and to meet the needs of those particular specific roles. So that's one way we get caught up. And another way we get caught up, similar kind of conversation with another client who was actually on the other end of the spectrum, a young person who noticed or may have understood that she was getting caught up in life. So getting caught up in wanting to be a good friend, getting caught up in wanting to meet the expectations of other people to the extent that her needs or her focus and her points of improvement were sucked out of the equation, because by the time she ran around after everybody else or was thinking, giving headspace to everybody else, there wasn't any energy, there wasn't any focus, there wasn't any drive, determination, motivation for her own needs to be considered, let alone worked towards and be met. Now this is something that I feel is, do I want to say it's a female, like a female, not necessarily trait, but characteristic that as females we're expected to have. And you know, I know that men will equally feel pressure in slightly altered and different ways, particularly if they have families and they are working towards the goals of their families. But we're not talking about men here. We're talking about the expectations that society places on women. Generally, society places on girls. Be a good girl, tidy up after yourself, be, you know, serene and meek and pleasant looking and do the things you're supposed to, and be sweet and be kind and be well behaved. And then we grow through that, and then girls that aren't like that. I remember this phrase when I was growing up, and it was just like, it was everywhere. She is a wild child. And it might be, you know, like a thing of the 90s, whatever, early noughties. But just let's look at the language of that. Calling a woman, a young woman who is determined, who has very clear ideas about the things that she wants to do to satisfy herself or to meet her needs, gets labelled a wild child. She couldn't possibly just have desires of her own that are different to what society expects. Or she couldn't possibly have ideas that are different to how it's acceptable or palatable for women to behave or show up. Because if she does, she's wild, she's out there. So there's like this constant messaging, this constant reinforcement outside of ourselves that makes us feel we need to perform in a certain way. And what that does is it causes us to minimize our own perception of ourselves, our own perception of how we want to move forward, our own perception of what is acceptable for us to strive for in our own lives. So we have that growing up, and then coming to motherhood, or if you have a partner, getting married, what's acceptable as a good wife, what it means to be a good wife, how a good wife should behave, the types of activities a good wife should be undertaking, taking care of the home, cooking and cleaning for her husband, making sure everything's just so, meeting his needs, not overpowering, not overwhelming, not asking too much. It goes on and on and on. Then we get to motherhood, and that's like a whole next level, because that's all about making sure that you are the perfect earth mother person who takes care of the children, loves them, nourishes them, is able to emotionally meet their needs. Did I say nourish? Nourish, allow them to flourish and be who they need to be, so that they can be well mannered and so that they can behave appropriately in public, and blah 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 blah. And that's all great. There is a place for, in society, people to be able to get along, and for there to be able to be a level of cohesion where we can harness interaction healthfully, and we can harness our abilities to support each other with finding a way to communicate and get along. It gets out of hand, however, when that means we believe we need to subjugate our own needs, wants, desires, ambitions to everything and everyone else. That is not cool. That is dangerous, and that is very unhelpful. There was a beautiful thing that I saw, and it was just described, and I'll summarize it. Basically, me first, then you. How does that make you feel to hear that? Do you think it's weird? Do you feel that that's really selfish? Do you think it's inappropriate? And I would ask you, if you have any of those responses, to question your own conditioning. Because the idea behind me first and then you is I'm the only person who is capable of fully and truly understanding my needs, and fully and truly understanding what it entails for me to take care of myself to not only an adequate but to a good standard, so that I feel good, so that I feel energized, so that I feel focused, so that I feel emotionally able to meet your needs. I have to take care of mine first, because if I act like my needs don't exist and I don't do that, how on earth am I going to be able to even start having a conversation with you, let alone starting to meet you and trying to take care of your needs? So me first, then you. And especially when we look at it in terms of emotions, if I don't have a good handle on my emotional health, or my an emotional barometer, understanding of my triggers, or understanding of situations that cause me to feel emotionally challenged or uncomfortable, how am I going to be able to communicate that with you? Or how am I going to be able to let you know that this isn't working for me because these are the things that are happening for me? So me first, then you, which is the opposite of getting caught up by all the situations in life that so easily happen. Like, okay, for example, now the world in the UK is starting to open up. So lockdown restrictions are being lifted. You're allowed to meet your friends in groups of 6 indoors. Correct me if I'm wrong, don't know. You can go indoors to eat. You can, do all these crazy things that we weren't allowed to do a couple of weeks ago. And in doing that, it can be so easy to get caught up in external needs or wants to, let's all get together, let's all do something, let's socialize, let's make up for lost time, let's live like life is ending tomorrow because we don't know what's going to go on, which is great if you are there and you want to. But if you are going along with things because someone else is making you feel like you ought to, or you're saying yes to too many things and it's the idea of it's just making you feel exhausted by how full your diary is, or it's things that this time and space of lockdown has made you realise you're not as into as perhaps you thought you were before. Those kinds of things, those kinds of situations that we can get caught up in, but we don't need to get caught up in, because if I'm taking care of me first, it doesn't really work. Those are the kinds of things where the cautionary tale gets issued. If we spend time connecting with ourselves every single day, listening, turning inwards, paying attention to how interactions have been affecting us, situations are affecting us, our energy levels, our emotional compass, then we can decide from a conscious place, instead of being caught up in the whirlwind of life, instead of being pushed along from position A to position E without our feet touching the ground and not realising how we got there. That is very special. That's when we start to create some kind of, alchemy. So yeah, that was a thought to me, because yesterday I liked getting caught up. It was great to a certain extent in the week. Some of the courting upping I was in was conscious, as in I was aware it was happening, but not necessarily chosen, which is a slight, it's a different space to be in, but it's very different still from being caught up and being completely unaware. It's happening at you, happening to you, and it's just not that great. So yeah, that's my vlog for this week, because again, I'm looking and it's just like, I'm always surprised. Am I surprised really? It's always interesting how much I can talk. So I'm going to end it there and then begin about thinking what happens for like next week, which starts today, right now. So comments, thoughts, ideas. Tell me, have you been caught up? Is this something that you relate to, that you're like, yeah, I totally can identify that in myself? How do you feel about it? Are you okay with it? Or you're like, actually, maybe I would like to be less caught up by other people's agendas and life and just situations generally. Let me know. Let's keep the convo going.